Hi, my name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED, and this is Q5 Ham Radio. Today I'm joined by Connor, W4IPC, and Kees, W0AAE. They had a tremendous performance at the WRTC 2026, won the youth category, and came in 17th overall, leading the pack with a lot of veteran contesters. So very impressive. This episode is brought to you by DX Engineering, supporting amateur radio operators worldwide with the gear and expertise to get you on the air. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, Kevin.
So I usually go through the steps on your way to WRTC, but I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I want to start at the end. I saw the short video clip of the ref telling you guys how well you had done and the expressions on both of your faces, but particularly yours, Kees. What was that feeling like when you finally turned the gear off and you found out how well you had done?
Well, it was kind of funny. I was really nervous. We had the right amount of QSOs. We actually outperformed the amount of QSOs, my goal of QSOs by 1,000, but I didn't think we hit it on multipliers, and I thought we were I thought we were lower than 25. My goal was just to be top 25. I was talking to Dan and Chris and N6MJ and Kale9A, and they thought it might have been a lofty goal. They didn't have any idea if it would be a good goal or not, and it was, and it turned out well. So when I heard that we were 12th at the time, I couldn't have been more happy because it exceeded my goal by a lot. And I think Connor may have had some other ideas, but it turned out really well. And I was just astonished. It was a genuine surprise.
And Connor, what about from your perspective? Did you think it was a lofty goal, and how did you feel when it was over?
I thought our goal was achievable because I know what we can do. Kees and I have operated before together, and we hold a couple records together, I think, or at least made several records together. So I believed in our operating ability, but when it came to the end, all I could think about was, man, Paulo said we were up higher and we went lower. And that's kind of the part I was stuck on, is our error rate. And towards the end, we had a bit of a spat in the tent. We lost a bunch of time on the air, so that sort of affected the end goal there.
Well, you can't leave us hanging on that. Tell us more about the spat and the lost time.
Yeah. So what was it, Kees? About 2 hours before the end, or maybe an hour before the end.
It was probably I think it was around 4 hours. I had a good run on 20 on phone, actually, which is kind of hard to do in this contest. It was unusual since we weren't getting self-spotted as much. And I had a good run on 20. I was getting 300 hour rate on the rate meter there on the 10-minute rate. And it was like, oh, great, this might turn into something big. And then it just what happened was the tent was starting to blow over, and the stakes kind of came undone of the tent. It was great thus far, and wind hadn't really had an issue, and stakes started to pull up, and Paulo was hanging the fort down, our referee and everything, and it was like, oh great, this is going to be great if this thing flies away right into our antennas. So I kind of had to ditch the rate and go help him for around probably 5 minutes or so. But it was enough to lose the frequency, So
Kees really did leave a good run. I mean, he was on sideband, I think on 20, and I mean he just had a lightning rate, and I just hear this commotion behind me, and I see Paulo reaching up behind me, grabbing the tent, holding it down. Then he asks for Kees to come help him as the tent is attempting to fly towards the tower, which would have cut our WRTC quite short.
Well, this is definitely a first. I've talked to a number of people, and I've heard generator issues. I've heard wind test interface. I've heard a number of different things, but the first tent almost blowing over is a new one for me. So I'm glad you recovered from that. One of the things that I want to talk about and focus on, you're a youth team. There were several youth teams. I think we always focus on people's age, and isn't this great? You have an opportunity, but you're actually both very experienced contesters. I'd like you to get into that, please. Connor, tell me a little bit about your contesting background over the past 18 months.
Oh gosh, 18 months. I can't even think back that far. My history only goes back to WRTC now. Well, so I operate at PJ2T a lot. WX3B I operate. Jim and I actually have been doing this fun thing we kind of call our ego operating. I believe we did two contests. It was WPX Oh, I can't even remember now. It was either CW or sideband, and then we did AWRL DX, I think sideband. One of them we did as a multi with just the two of us, and then the other one we did as a multi-2 with just the two of us. And both of them we placed very high, and almost, I think we kind of scared W3LPL. We beat them on multipliers on the high bands and came pretty close to them. So that's what I've been doing, just operating at friends' stations. I'm a perpetual professional guest operator, it seems. Operating W3AO field day and having a blast at it.
And Kees, what about yourself? I know you try to skip away from college when you can to do some contesting. What's the past couple of years been like?
Yeah, so I kind of got to get started. I got interested in contesting in around 2020. It was when I actually kind of met Connor. Not met him. This was during COVID and stuff, but we had kind of met through remote ham radio. We'd done a few contests remote back when that was a big thing during COVID and nobody could meet. But over the past 2 years, three-ish years, I've been operating at N0NI at Tony's station. N0NI used to be a big multi-op station way back before 2020 or so. His station kind of fell apart during a Durate show in 2020, so it never really he hasn't really improved it since. He's improved the low bands a lot, but not the high bands. But I've been operating at his single op. I'm a big single op guy. Unlike Connor, unlike Connor, who's a multi-op guy, I'm a big single op guy. I like operating. I like operating a lot, I guess. And so I've been operating at his for the past WRTC qualifiers. Initially in 2023, I wanted to go to WRTC, and I knew what I had to do to get there. K3PA, who's in NA9 in my section here for WRTC, or in my qualifying area, I knew he was going to beat me out no matter what. He just has better location and everything. So I just decided to go for the youth category. So I just did as many contests as I could. From N0NI as a single op, just trying to get as many points as I could. I missed a few. I missed CQ Worldwide CW, and I think it was 2023. Yeah, I missed that one. I missed a few other big ones. So I knew I was down on points, but I pulled through, and it was great that I got to qualify and pick Connor here. So yeah, it's just been a blast. I'm doing a lot of single ops. Got a single op coming up this week at NAQPCW that I hope to do pretty well in, hopefully top 10. So at least that's the goal. So we'll see what we continue forward. Hopefully I get to go to WRTC 2030 if I make the goal right.
So I must admit, I don't know how youth teams qualify. Are there also regions, and what are the qualification standards for the team leader and for the teammate?
So you have to be below 25 years old. I think it's 25 years and younger, actually. And there's kind of a running list. They kind of guessed at who's a youth. There's a running list on the website for this past one of all the youth. And I think you had to meet the minimum amount of points to be a teammate, to be a team lead as a youth. Don't quote me on that if I'm wrong. But they picked the top 4 youth for the team lead, and then the team lead could pick whoever they wanted to as a teammate. Didn't matter if they had 0 points or 6,000 points for the teammate. Just it had to be a youth. So that was the process. They just kind of guessed at the age of people, and if they didn't pass it, well, then they moved on to the next one. So I actually believe I was in the top 6. Or a top 5, I think, and then the second one, who was in China, he couldn't make it, so they kind of moved to me next, and that's how I got it. Got the invite from WRTC. So I definitely wasn't in the top 4. I just didn't have the time to be in the top 4, but it was great to be in the top 5 and get to go. So it was a blast, and then I got to pick Connor immediately because he was the only one who I knew I could trust to do this. So yeah, it was a process.
So once you got the nod and you knew that you'd qualified and you knew you're going to be going to Y Boston and competing in the WRTC 2026, what happened? What plans went into place right away?
Yeah, Connor can take this over after I kind of say a few things here, but once I got the invite, it was actually in August of, what was that, 25? Yeah, it was last year. So August of 2025, at the end. And it was actually kind of a bad situation. I wouldn't say bad, but it was good that I qualified, but it was also like, shoot, I missed all the nice contests that Connor and I could practice in. I mean, we've operated before, but we haven't operated CW and SSB at the same time. So we missed IARU and we couldn't do it during the school year or anything, and we couldn't meet up. So it was it was great, but also kind of a bad situation planning wise. I kind of left it up to Connor to gather all the equipment because he's so well connected with equipment. So Connor, why don't you take that over?
Well, that's actually pretty consistent. Before you answer, Connor, everybody I talk to, there seems to be one person that ends up being the logistics guy. So Connor, you're the guy.
Yeah. So for me, well, I'll pick up a little bit on that. I got myself prepared by practicing with Max and 4ML. We both live far away from our partners, but we live a drive away from each other. So we sort of did a few contests together, CW, NAQP, CW, NAQP sideband, and we sort of used each other to practice the multi-2 thing. But yeah, so Kees picked me as his teammate, I think about half a second after he got the invitation email. So I get the invite, and immediately I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't own radios. I do not own a radio other than a KX3, and I don't think I'm taking that to
Well, you do
England
now, so you can't use that excuse
I
again.
do now.
But go ahead.
So immediately I'm reaching out to people trying to figure out how the heck do I get all this gear? Because for me, it's way simpler. Kees lives all the way in Minnesota. He's so far away from England. But for me, I was just going to drive up to DC and fly direct. So a much lower chance of losing gear or things coming in 2 days after they were supposed to. So I decided pretty much I'll take all the gear. Tim N3QE, who I think has been on here before, was nice enough to sort of volunteer his radios and more importantly his time to sort of help me. He gave us a FTDX 101, an FTDX 10, and a spare FTDX 10 to bring with us. He brought all 3 radios. In his luggage, it was a checked bag with just a 101 and a triplexer in it. And then he had a 10 in his backpack, and then in his carry-on luggage was another 10. And after I figured out, okay, Tim's got the radios, no issue there. Tim also helped us with the recorder. He was a competitor in the last WRTC, so he still had most of this stuff available in his shack because he was that guy, just like I'm that guy that had all this stuff. So I decided we needed filters and switching. I didn't have any of that. Tim did, but I figured we'll get a corporate sponsor. So OM Power, I reached out to them, and about 10 minutes after I emailed TV over there, he said, yeah, sure, we'll send you 2 filter boxes and a 2x10 switch. And sure enough, it actually showed up. And to my surprise, $4,000 of gear just showed up at my door. So we got all the gear together and flew to England, and Kees brought all the spares. We were kind of terrified because Kees had connections that something would get lost or damaged, so I sort of was the pack mule. I think Tim and I had 6 suitcases plus all this gear in our backpacks.
Yeah, I felt sorry for you guys, man. When you guys came into the hotel,
I bet you did.
I've never seen so many in the hotel. Like, it was just all spread out on our hotel floor in the room, and we got everything like set up before we went out to the site and everything, and just all the equipment, all the zip ties, all the bags full of stuff. I mean, I've done field day before, but this was something else. It was like, and the fact that it actually worked first time, we went out to the site and it was good to go. I mean, there was no interstation interference whatsoever. S0 noise on pretty much every band except 80. 80 had a little generator noise, but just incredible. It was an amazing just turn of events, because it was like, oh shoot, this might be bad or whatever. We've never done this before. We've never done a mobile multi-2 before, I guess. And just seeing it work so well, and how well Connor played, because I was away. I had stuff going on during the school year. I'm a busy guy, I guess. Well, so was Connor, but I just had a lot going on. I was like, I can operate for the life of me. I can do it all day, but I'm just not good at planning right now because I have so much going on. And seeing Connor pull up with everything, he and Dan pull up, and it just working first time was just amazing. So
Yeah.
no issues whatsoever.
And we can't thank Tim enough. Tim made all these jumpers for us of specific lengths of RG400, and all we had to do was unzip tie them and hook it all up, and everything worked. He was he ran our practice sessions like the Navy. He had me practice at field day with all the gear. So on the 10-meter/80-meter CW and 10-meter sideband station, we set up all the gear, everything, switching, triplexer, radios, computer, everything. And luckily at our field day, our GOTA antenna is a tri-bander, so that was easy to test with that. And he made sure we ran through every band, every combination, made sure the triplexer didn't have issues. Then again, the night before we flew to England, in his basement, we ripped everything out of our suitcases, set it up in his shack, and set it up, broke it down, set it up, broke it down. So basically, when we got to England, all Kees could do was watch, because I had done this so many times. I didn't want him to mess up the flow.
I didn't know what to do. I was just like, Connor, what do I do? You got this so well lined up. And he was like, uncut those zip ties. I was like, sweet, just let me do something, man. Like,
I told him, uncut the zip ties and get your computer ready.
Yeah, pretty much. I just had to plug in the computer. That was it.
Well, Kees, if it makes you feel any better, I was in the tent during setup for KL9A and N6MJ. And between Chris, KL9A, and Bill, W9KKN, Dan just sat back. He was, yeah. I mean, I loved watching this because it clearly had been done before this way, and everybody knew what their role was. One of the questions I want to ask you guys, I mean, clearly you're confident, you're capable, you have Tim N3QE helping out, but this is your first time. There must have been some intimidation, some fear in your minds as you got on that plane to go to compete with the best in the world. How were you thinking about that?
I actually, there's so many big names out there. You see you see the roster just scrolling by as look at the website, and it's like, oh my goodness, these are the best guys in the world. All in one room. What the heck? I've never had this experience before. I live in Minnesota. We don't have. We have contests up here, but we don't have the big names on the East Coast or Dan on the West Coast. So it was just insane being kind of intimidated, not by, I guess, the names, but by what they could do. So that's why when I was doing the log analysis beforehand and everything, I was just like, well, let's just focus on top 25. That's all I want to do. I think even that might have been kind of crazy. The youth teams you think are kind of low, I guess. And I had that going through my mind and everything. So the fact that we did so well was pretty crazy and everything. But yeah, it wasn't really intimidation. I was just excited to see everybody, to meet all these guys that I've heard about a million times before, and finally get to meet them and shake hands and converse about what they think the results are going to be. So it was just great.
So I've done all these multi-operator contests, and I've been to these multi-stations that I had no business being at. So I've sort of lost that nervousness factor of, oh my gosh, everybody here is better than me. Because for the longest time, everybody around me was better than me, so I kind of got used to that. So I wasn't so intimidated or nervous about the competition itself. I was more concerned about the results, because in the past, youth teams don't always do the greatest, and I wanted to make sure we didn't embarrass ourselves, and that was mostly what I was focused on. Don't embarrass ourselves.
So clearly you're there, you're I'm sure enjoying meeting a lot of these people in person, maybe for the second or third time, maybe the first time, but there's also other youth teams. And I'm curious if you guys, the youth group ended up spending more time together, or was it kind of equally distributed amongst all the competitors?
Yeah, we were around, again. Yeah. We were around each other a lot. Several of us are close friends, so last year for Secret Worldwide Sideband, myself, Max N4ML, Megan EI5LA, and Leon DL30N, we all went to PJ2T together, so we all sort of had our own little ham radio clique already, so we hung out with each other. But there's several photos of every youth team, all our members together, so we definitely hung out with each other a lot. I want to say it was equally distributed, and I hung out with everybody else, but we definitely hung out with our closer friends.
So what was the sense that you got from that group talking to them?
Oh,
It
they
was
were all nervous.
Yeah, very, very nervous. Well, I was most nervous about the Russian team, RA9P, and I forget the other. Let me look it up here really quick.
R2BFL,
Yeah, R2BFL.
Maxime.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Those two guys, man, they got ninth. They're youth. They're around our age, I think, if they're 22, 23 or so. They got ninth in WRTC in 2023, which was just insane. I think that's the best any youth team's ever done. And top 10, I mean, it was just crazy for that time. And people were congratulating. People were even coming up to them before the contest saying, nice job, guys, in the last one. So we knew they were going to be tough competition and everything. And I was like, oh, we're not going to beat them, like that's a team, that's a gold medal winning team in a few years if they can stay on track. So that was the most nervous thing about them. But just conversing with them, it was just phenomenal. It was so much fun talking to these guys that you've never sseen before. I've never met in person any of the youth teams because I just don't get around a lot and so busy. But yeah, it was just fun at finally meeting these guys and actually having really, really fun competition with the Russian team that I was really, really worried about. But I know Connor. I think he had a bet with Leon. Like I don't remember what it was, but whoever won
Leon and I always have a competition going on between each other of in contests, even if it's just a silent competition. It's happening.
So have you guys compared notes? I hope to interview Alex and Maxim at some point. I remember being out to dinner Saturday night, and Alex's dad was there, and at that point, that team was doing remarkably well, and I'm not sure what happened after that. But were you talking to the teams, and did you learn a little bit about how things went with each one of those youth teams?
I remember Leon. It was Connor 5 minutes after the contest looked at his phone or whatever, and he saw Leon complaining about 14 times or the generator going out 14 times or whatever, and he was like excuses. I don't remember what he said, but and then finding out that we beat the youth Russian team was pretty cool and everything, and so afterward. We were kind of talking about what we did. We didn't realize the bands were going to be so good. I mean, 10 meters was open for a majority of the contest, at least 25-30% of the contest. It was just phenomenal, way better than we ever would have thought. And
and we missed it.
Yeah, people, and we missed it too. Yeah, but we hit it the first hour really, really well. It got a few mults in the log, and then I moved because the rate wasn't too good. But just conversing with them and seeing what they had to say about that and why they moved to 40 meters so early and we didn't. So just kind of talking strategy and stuff was just great.
Yeah, the Russian team was actually in our cluster of sites, and they actually walked all the way over and came and congratulated us in person. So that felt really nice.
So I had a conversation with Manfred Wolf, DJ5MW. You may have heard it. And I asked him, would you do anything differently? And I was sort of amazed, that calm Manfred voice. He says, no, I wouldn't have. So I'm going to ask you guys the same question. Would you do anything differently knowing what you know now?
Yeah, for sure. 10 meters, we already talked about 10 meters, but the bands were so much better than we thought they would have been from England. I mean, good grief. We thought we were going to be operating on 40 meters based on how the bands were performing the previous days. We thought we were going to be operating at 40 meters like all day, you know what I mean? Even during the daytime. And just the fact that 20 and 15 were open until way into the night. I mean, we stayed on 20 and 15 until at least 11 p.m. I thought. I didn't even move to 40 until it was open to the U.S. because it wasn't worth it, you know. 20 was just open in the U.S. and we wanted those 5 pointers instead of the measly 2 in Europe. So we just decided to stay on the higher bands later into the day, and that's why we were like 27th or whatever. We hadn't hit 40 or 80 to get those malts. So everybody thought we were like 30th and beyond, and we were actually pretty high in general. We just hadn't moved to the low band. So I think we should have hit 10 meters early, way stronger earlier. I remember Connor had to go to 10 meters the second day. I told him during the contest, I was like, we completely missed 10 meters. We got to go there at least tomorrow to see if we can pick up these extra multipliers. And He ended up just grinding it out. He ended up just staying there for I don't know how many hours, but just a few, just to get those multipliers back, and it ended up being worth it. We didn't get all the multipliers back, but we got some that was helpful for the score. So yeah, Connor, what did you
Yeah.
did you have any comments about that?
10 meters, man, 10 meters. We missed it the first day. You and I would keep checking it, and it never really sounded great. We could never really get a crazy run going, so we just kind of would abandon it. And of course, eventually we abandoned it for long enough that we missed an opening that everybody else seemed to catch. But that's the thing: multipliers, multipliers, multipliers. We stayed on 15 and 20 super late, which was the strategy only works so well. Once you get there, the strategy goes out the window. I think we stuck to it for a couple hours, and then it was our head strategy. So we stuck to the high bands really late. Kees and I kept thinking, oh, we should go to 40, and then we'd psych each other out and say, no, we'll stay on 2015. And I think that's what really helped us, is getting those high bands into the US at the night. So would I do anything else different? Probably not. No, just stick on 10 the first day, a little more, stick it out.
What about your ratio of CW contacts to phone contacts? Do you have an idea of what that percentage was, and would you do that any different?
It was around 70-30. It was like 69-31 or something like that. That was higher than I thought it was going to be. Phone, there were a few really, really good phone runs. I remember Connor on 40. He had a run on just below 7200. It was like 7199. Actually, I think you were on 7200, but lower sideband.
Yep, the DQRM was crazy.
Yeah, but you had a good 300-hour rate. I remember for a while on the rate meter, I was like, I was thinking he should move to like CW or whatever. I was like, nah, never mind, just stay there. You have a great rate there. So when he moved to 40 sideband, I thought you're kind of crazy, you know. But he got his frequency below 7200, and it was just crazy what he was able to do. And I stayed on 20 working the US while he was doing that. So that was crazy. That phone was so good. I noticed that the higher teams had around 20%, 25% phone. So I think we could have stayed off of phone just a little bit. We were trying to push it as much as we could, but that ends up killing you in the long run. So I don't think it was a good idea to stay on phone as much as we did. But hey, I think we found a few mults from it at least, and got a few HQ stations in it in the log.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I did find it was so much easier to move stations on sideband. You would add, there's this thing of stations really not knowing CW. They just know contest CW. So at 40 words a minute, you say, please QSY 21028. They have no idea what you just said because it wasn't a call sign or an exchange. So there was so much of that. I would ask for a move and be met with silence. And then, of course, you ask for the move. And you met with silence, and now you don't know if they actually logged the contact. But sideband, I think we stayed on sideband a little too long, but there were so many mults to be had on it, and it was so easy for me to move people to Kees on sideband and just, we're waiting for you on 21028. But that 40-meter run was quite incredible. There was a period. I don't think Paulo got a picture of it, but the 10-minute rate was over 500, and I couldn't believe that on 40 meters.
So if there was one story that encapsulates the weekend for you, other than winning the youth category, which that is the biggest story, but what would that one story be, Connor?
Oh gosh, the story. So many stories to be told. Honestly, I can't pinpoint one out. It was just such a fun week. Meeting everybody and sharing our stories, hearing stories from people, and I'll give you a funny one. YL3JA. You may have seen in the comments of both of our posts, we say again. That happened at WRTC during testing day on Friday, or Thursday, whatever day was testing day. He called me and he was 70 over S9 and I gave him the again, Yankee Lima again, about 15 times. And that's the story that I keep thinking of at WRTC. It was just a little bit of fun with friends.
What about you, Kees?
I don't really have any one single story. Just meeting everybody finally. I've never really I've been to Hamvention obviously, but seeing all these contesters in one place, and that was what most excited me. Just seeing all these guys that you've heard on the air a million times, you've worked a million times, and that you know so well. But actually conversing with some of the some of the spouses of the hams was actually really really fun. I remember Bud's wife, Bud AA3B. His wife came up to me and she was really really happy about our performance and stuff, and talking to her about some career stuff, because Bud worked at Lockheed Martin, and future life down that line was just great. I wasn't expecting that, and just conversing with her about that, about career choices, and gaining security clearance access, stuff like that. So just hearing all the stories and stuff, and then finally getting to work this magnificent event. I mean, the weather was perfect. Propagation was perfect. Couldn't have been much better. It was just insane how well everything turned out. The organizers did just amazing. Other than the travel issue at the beginning of the day on I think it was Wednesday, where the bus didn't end up at the airport for a while. That was it. That was the only complaint I had. It was just so much fun to that it all came together so well, and that everybody was able to just have a good time. So all the stories combined kind of turned into that. Just a great time.
Well, sounds like a good note to end on. I really appreciate you guys joining me. I love your enthusiasm. It seems to me you guys could sit down at a radio right now and do it all over again. Any final thoughts for us before we say 73?
My final thought is thanks to Mark and Georgina for putting 3 years of their lives on hold for this little competition of ours, and if there were any issues that arise, I sure didn't notice any. So congrats to them for putting on such a great show.
Yeah, it was great. They couldn't have done any better, I think. Everything was perfect. Stations were perfect. I forget the guy who did the stations, but who organized the station building. Just insane. Zero noise, at least on our station. Zero noise on almost all the bands. It was just crazy. How well everything worked out. Propagation was phenomenal, and thank you to Tim as well for giving us the gear. Without him, I don't think we would have been able to do this with our busy lives. So thank you to all the people who could pull it together.
Well, again, congratulations on a big win. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED. This has been Q5 Ham Radio 73.
73.